on this episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists.
Well, just like anything, the more that you put your own efforts in, you have a little bit more control of what you're looking for. I had control of the location called the canton of where I wanted to work. I knew I wanted to be in the same city that my friend was in. A lot of hygienists that went before me, that went with agencies, they had to go where the agency had sent them. I had a great experience, and it made me a stronger clinician all the way around. I feel like my time that I practiced there, I feel like I gained 5 to 6 years of experience in my, nearly 2 years of time. Listeners, I hope you know and value that your education is so important and so valued globally. And I had one of the highest visas that Switzerland could give you as a registered dental hygienist. I have my bachelor's degree, and I wasn't even aware. And there was so many people that were just dying to have the type of visa that I had.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast, episode number 429. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you so much for joining us today. We have a phenomenal, fantastic, fabulous, whatever other words that we can use episode for today. We're joined today by Claudia Walder. Claudia, she spent some time working in Switzerland as a dental hygienist, and so we talk a lot about her experiences there. And then we kind of just, what did it look like moving back? Because she had spent quite a bit of time there. And, some of her life decisions, some of the major life decisions that she had were kind of impacted by her experience there. And so I can't wait for y'all to hear about that one. But she is a person, super fascinating, really fun to hang out with. She works for PacDent. And so she hosted a lot of the shows. And so I think that this is a great opportunity for all of you. If you get a chance to meet her, you really should just try and spend some time with her. If she's working the booth, it'll probably be a little bit harder to kind of spend time with her, but try and schedule some time or just meet up with her for drinks or something later. I promise you it's going to be some of the best time that you've invested in somebody. And I really hope to get her back on the show sometime and talk about, more dental hygiene things. Next week, we're going to do an episode around what it's like to prep for a dental mission trip abroad. I know a lot of you guys are doing things that are local, and I want to support you as much as I can. It's just not really kind of my forte. So if someone's out there listening and says, hey, I do some local charity work, love to be on the show, please let me know. I'll get you on the show. But for me, I do a lot of stuff abroad. And so I have like an idea of the episode, and like what happens almost all the time is that the idea of what I expect it's going to be, then the time comes, probably is going to not be what I thought it was going to be. But, I'm hopeful that it'll be a really good episode. 2025 is shaping up to be a really amazing dental trip year. So if you're planning on doing something, it seems like it's so far away, 2025, but it's already almost halfway through the year. And if you don't start planning for it, you won't go. And so if you want to put on your calendar March/April, because I'm not really sure exactly which month, I think March, but who knows? We're going to be heading back to the Philippines. If you want to join us, just drop me a line. I would love to have people just be able to appreciate the culture with me. I just actually got back from doing a trip with my family. My youngest daughter went with me to the Philippines, and my in-laws and my father and my wife and my wife's great aunt, I guess. And we all had just a phenomenal time. And so one of the things that my daughter liked the most was just how wonderful and awesome the people are, and how, while it's different and unique, it's also there. It feels a little bit like home, she said. So I would love to show you all that. So, consider coming with me. If you're interested, Andrew at atale2hygienist.com. I am traveling for the next several weeks, so I'm going to try and keep this one short, and probably future intros are going to be a little bit more short than usual. I know you guys don't mind, but yeah, I just kind of want to give you a heads up that I'm going to be out and about doing some stuff. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. That'll help you kind of keep in touch with what we're up to. But other than that, I hope you all enjoy this episode with Claudia Walder.
A tale of two hygienists.
All right, listeners, welcome into the interview portion of the podcast. I'm joined today by Claudia. Thank you very much for making time.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
All right, so we met just recently, and we're talking about something completely not what we're talking about today, which is always fun to do. And like we segue, right? We're like, okay, well, what about this? And you're like, you know what? I practiced abroad. I'm like, holy crap, I got to get you on the podcast, and so I can learn all about this. So,
Okay.
I want to know first. I think it's important to establish with our listeners like who you are first, kind of like how you got to the profession and all of that, and then we'll talk a little bit about the story about like moving abroad, working there. What was it like? What were some of the rules that were different? What was the dental knowledge that was different, better or worse? Because I feel like we've actually had a lot of people that we might be in our same circles that actually did practice in Switzerland. That doesn't seem as uncommon as maybe like Oman. I had someone from Oman, come on, like, oh, that's a little more obscure. But if you don't mind just kind of like letting the listeners kind of in on who you are.
Sure, yeah. I'm Claudia Walder. I'm a registered dental hygienist. It's a special year for me. I'm celebrating my 20th year as a registered dental hygienist.
Nice.
I graduated from Loma Linda University. I was a dental assistant before that. And even before that, I earned my bachelor's degree in religious studies. I had a minor in history. So I kind of been all over the place.
This would be a better podcast than I ever envisioned. Great. Okay. How did you get from like religious studies to like dentistry? Like what's the bridge there?
Well, even before dental hygiene, even before my religious studies, my first major in school was speech therapy. That was my first major, and I loved my classmates, but I thought that I was more of a tactile person, and I learned from investigating and touching and being curious and moving around. And to break it down, one of the instructors in my program was just not as warm as I thought an allied health professional instructor might be.
Sure.
And so I had a lot of other colleagues and friends that were in the hygiene department, and I had a lot of friends that were in dentistry, pre-dent. And so for a hot minute, I declared my major in religious studies, and I was pre-dent. So I took my classes and thought everything was great. And at that time, I had this boyfriend, and his dad was a dentist, and we were over at their house having dinner. And this poor guy, he was just at his wit's end. Both of his hygienists went on maternity leave. He was looking for a new office manager, and one of his dental assistants had hurt her leg, had a broken leg, and he turned to me and he said, "Whatever you do, don't be a dentist. What you should do, Claudia, think about being a dental hygienist. All your problems in life, you won't have any of the problems that I'm dealing with if you were a hygienist."
Oh my God. By the way, though, just isn't that an interesting perception, though? You have from the doctor's perspective, it's like, look, I have no power. Everything's being, imposed on me, pregnancies and broken legs and stuff. And then from our perspective now as hygienists, we're like, doctors have all the power. Isn't that weird? Okay. Sorry. Continue on.
Yeah. So that was just in my little back little nugget, little morsel, just, a gem that you take into consideration, but you don't really realize the history and the amount of time and experience that they're speaking on. You're a young 20-something-year-old and you think the world is in front of you. Anyhow, fast forward. I grew up in a family with a lot of service in mind, and so I did a lot of humanitarian mission trips with church and school, whether it was going to Mexico and whatnot. And when I was in college, my junior year, I went abroad as a missionary student humanitarian. And I lived and went to school and worked in Kenya, East Africa. And so I taught at the preschool and I took classes, and that's a conversation for a whole other podcast.
Sure. Yeah, we'll have you back for sure.
But there was a clinic down the road. And so I volunteered at this clinic. And it was primarily a medical clinic, but there was a team of dentists that came, and I believe they were from the Netherlands. And so I assisted and I volunteered there and got more kind of intrigued and in fire for the dental profession. And there was this wonderful woman that they trained, and she was a Kenyan, and she was giving OHI to the children in the village. And I just fell in love with how she engaged with the kids and how just a small interaction of providing education on brushing your teeth. And they didn't even get into the flossing, brushing for 2 minutes. Just let's brush once a day. That was That's all minimum it was.
Right.
But to see the delight when these dentists from overseas came over, brought them a toothbrush, and for some of these kids, it was the first time they'd seen a toothbrush. It was a whole new concept. And so that really touched in me the feeling of service and giving back and educating and the impact that you can make in how you serve your community. So when I came back, I had a lot of things going on in my mind, and I thought, okay, I'm going to make the change. There's a lot of other little trickling little things
As
in there.
there are, yeah, sure.
But I think overall that was kind of one of the big factors that happened for me.
Seeing her kind of help these children, though, probably didn't really satisfy me. Did you have a comprehension at that time of like your tactile desire to like work with your hands and do stuff? Was that satisfied by watching her? Or was that like, I need to explore it a little bit more?
Well, I think just seeing hands-on how she's kind of adapting the toothbrush, and she was really good about showing a bass technique and kind of reaching up closer to the gum line. And I didn't know all of those concepts yet, obviously. I hadn't even been accepted into hygiene school yet. But just seeing, she had a typodont, a big mouth, and a big toothbrush. And just seeing, the manual mechanism here and being hands-on and putting that toothbrush in a child's hand and having them show her how to use that on a typodont, that appealed to me. And then the clinicians, the dentists that were there doing some treatment, I got to see that, and I volunteered, and I got to see, hands-on, restoring teeth or primarily extracting teeth. And so I think I knew that was going to be the path for me, as I'm a giver, like most hygienists are, a caregiver, and I think all of these little pieces of the puzzle were falling into right in the right alignment for me.
So you came back, you enrolled, you were accepted, and you were enrolled. You graduated, and then what was like the first practice experience that you had? Was that starting mission trips all of a sudden, or did you work private practice for a bit? What happened there?
Well, mission service, I was so blessed. I attended Loma Linda University, and in their program, you have the opportunity to do overseas humanitarian services during your breaks. And so every year I went to Belize, I went to Central America. And so while I was a student, I could do hygiene overseas. And so then I caught the bug.
Yeah.
And I knew right away that I had to be in a situation or provide an opportunity for myself that I could give back overseas in some type of capacity. And then I think after our first mission trip, we got a journal. And in the back of this journal, there was a little ad. I think I was a senior by this time that said, "Are you looking to improve your life? Consider working overseas in Switzerland." And so I had two classmates, and we thought, this will be great. We can go to Switzerland and work. I wasn't ready yet right after I graduated to make the commitment. I had a couple classmates that did. And right after graduation, I worked close to home. And my classmates that were in Switzerland, one said, "You better get over here. You better be my roommate and join me. Let's find you an opportunity here."
Yeah.
So yeah. Now my colleague, my friend, she went with an agency, and an agency helped her secure her position. That didn't happen for me. I had gone to visit my friend a few times, taking a little vacation in Europe, met some different dentists in the area, and I made my own opportunity. So I made my resume, and I went door to door to some different dental offices. I didn't get a lot of hits when I went door to door, but I mailed out resumes, and I got a hit.
Do you feel like there is an upside to the way that you did it as opposed to going through an agency, or is it person dependent? Like, what are some of those considerations people should consider?
Well, just like anything, the more that you put your own efforts in, you have a little bit more control of what you're looking for. I had control of the location called the canton of where I wanted to work. I knew I wanted to be in the same city that my friend was in. A lot of hygienists that went before me, that went with agencies, they had to go where the agency had sent them. They might have had one or two options on a state or a town, but they were just happy to get their foot in the door, and they went wherever, they had the opportunity. I had the opportunity to be a little bit more selective, so I could say, yeah, I want to work in this state, I want to work in this town. Yeah, so for me, I feel proud of the fact that I earned my own opportunity. I made my own way.
Yeah. Tell me about like the, not culture from like a U.S., Switzerland thing. We'll get into that maybe a little bit later, but, you know, more like the dental culture from what you had done, you know, school, then private practice, and then now working over there. Office setting, patient expectation, doctor expectations. Was there very much difference at all?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
okay.
there was a lot of differences. And understand this. This is going on 18 years ago for me when I was in Switzerland. So each patient in Switzerland, now they're not part of the EU, so they don't have socialized medicine, and most Swiss companies don't provide dental insurance to employees. So most patients are paying cash out of pocket for their own preventative cleaning. And in the time that I was there, they were going maybe once a year, and I was advocating for the minimum of 2 to 3 times a year.
15.
And one of the biggest differences was when I walked into my operatory, I saw this old-fashioned manual egg timer. And I thought, what is that? A manual timer? And they said, yes, you'll see. The minute that you recline your patient back in your chair, you start that egg timer and you put it on for a minimum of 60 minutes. And those patients are billed per minute.
Really?
Yes.
So the Canadian model for the listeners is by 15 minutes. I believe like 15 units of 15 minutes. So, but this one's down to the actual minute?
To the minute.
Do you recall what a minute would cost of your time?
I don't.
That's interesting.
I'm going to say the average, because after a couple months, I was kind of saying, hello, everyone is a minimum of an hour.
Really?
And at the time, it was about 150 to 180 francs, which is somewhere about $150, sometimes 170.
180 would be about 3 francs a minute.
Approximately.
That's incredible. Yeah.
So patients were inclined to prioritize coffee and cigarette stain.
Of course.
And on your anterior teeth.
Of course.
And lickety split.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about a country who, one of the biggest prides of the country is timekeeping. They make watches, they make clocks.
Yeah.
So they want you to be as efficient and fast as possible to remove coffee and stain. So that was a
different
big
culture.
Challenge.
I would assume that you have English-speaking patients then.
I did have English-speaking patients. I practiced in Lucerne, which is in central Switzerland, and I speak fair German.
That's something that you picked up as you were over there, or you learned it before you went over?
So I learned German a little bit before in school. I took German, and it was at 7 a.m.
You want to call out your educator too while you're at it? I know we had Mrs. So-and-so, and she was the worst at 7 a.m. You can do that if you want. Like, this is the time to get revenge on your teachers.
But it was one of those classes, it's just like, it was my own fault at first because I didn't sign up for classes, the preceding quarter in school. And so it was like, okay, I need that other foreign language. And what's available that I can register for? Oh, wonderful. German at 7 a.m.
Perfect. Oh, you snooze, you lose. I mean, that's that's on
but
you.
You know what? But the universe was looking out for me, right?
Yeah, exactly. I had a plan, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's get into this. So how did your schedule get structured then? If you don't have an hour block, it's a moving target, it felt like.
Yeah, it is a moving target.
So like sometimes you'd have would you still block for an hour and only take 40? Okay.
Mm-hmm. I'd block for an hour. Sometimes, though, there had been a Danish dental hygienist before me, and she would just work until basically when the patient said, you're done, and then she would stop. And I was a little bit more assertive, and I would say, no, we're not done. But at about 45 minutes or so at the end, then I would say, okay, we will round up. But P.S., I need you back in 3 months minimum.
Yeah.
It was difficult, and this isn't in every office, but I worked in a more old-fashioned practice where he was an older doc, and it was more of a Prophy 1, Prophy 2, and that was progress for him. But I had to work with the given situation that I was in, and that's, you have to adapt. It's not like at home where I could say, all right, I'll find another job somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point too. I think that sometimes we forget kind of the limitations that you have as a healthcare professional there, just because it's like too many restrictions on what you're allowed to do. And part of that's job hopping. You can't just jump wherever you want.
Right. I had signed a contract.
See, how do you sign a contract like that though, when you don't even know what the working experience is like?
When you're young and you're just looking for adventure and, everyone's painting all this beautiful picture. And I had a great experience and I had a lot of learning objectives. And it made me a stronger clinician all the way around. I feel like my time that I practiced there, I feel like I gained 5 to 6 years of experience in my, nearly 2 years of time practicing in Switzerland.
How did the doctor-hygienist relationship, I mean, you mentioned like, Prophy 1, Prophy 2, but like, were they expecting you to help tee up treatment for restorative or anything like that? Or was it the model where, they've already seen the doctor and then they just kind of get sent to you only for this one thing that the doctor directed you to do?
I worked in a very, very old-fashioned, traditional dental hygiene practice. And again, this was 18 years ago. And so he was open to me giving patients advice for restorative treatment that needed to be done. It wasn't expected out of me. But very early on, I was fortunate enough in school to be in a clinic where hygienists and dental students, we worked together. As a hygiene student and dental students, we were in groups. So there would be like 4 dental students and 2 or 3 hygiene students and 2 faculty instructors. So as a student, I early on was taught to look for restorative treatment for the dental student in my group.
Right.
So that's how I left school. And I know not all of my colleagues were taught that in school. So I think he was appreciative. It wasn't expected of me. And I've been in some experiences where the doctor didn't ever want me to say anything as far as restorative work goes, what needed to be done, treatment planning, don't even do this, X, Y, and Z. But he was pretty open towards it, as long as I'm within my time frame.
Of course.
Stay on time.
How did, bigger culture outside the dental office, how did that part work as far as, outside of these hours that you're working, were you making enough money to have fun? What were the wages like? What were the things that you did after work or maybe on the weekends when you weren't working that were different than what you would be doing back in the States?
Oh, yeah. Well, salary was excellent. And with that said, at the time, I'll say this. After I finished my working experience there, in my personal experience, and this is not the way it is everywhere else, I was dramatically underpaid. When I found out and met more friends and we started discussing salary, I found out I was severely underpaid. But like many young hygienists, you're just happy for your first job, for your first experience. And then I found out what all my other friends were earning. With that said, I had 13 weeks of paid vacation. Not everybody has that, but I had 13 weeks of paid vacation. So I felt blessed to have that. Did I have a lot of great out-of-office experiences? I sure did. I traveled all over the place, all over Europe, back and forth to the States, back and forth to Central America. I mean, I had a good salary. At the time, I was earning about $6,000 to $7,000 US at the time. And at the time, a lot of my friends were earning between 8, 9. So I was a little shortchanged.
Yeah.
But still a good salary. And
Yeah.
understand, I'm from California, so we have a little bit higher wages, and I had been expecting a little bit higher wages. Now, from what I understand, I have some colleagues that were telling me they're starting out at about 10,000 francs, so over 10,000 for a full-time position.
Isn't it pretty expensive to live there, though?
It is.
It's one of the most expensive places in the world,
It's one of the most expensive places. But honestly, with the rate that inflation is going up right now, I mean, we're catching up.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. So you had your friend, did you end up being roommates with your friend? Is that what kind of happened there?
So
or
we initially started out as roommates, and then my friend had some health problems, and so she had to come back to the States. So I had to find my own place, and I ended up just getting my own little studio apartment, and I was really close to just calling it quits, packing up and moving. And then I had some construction things happen in my apartment, and I had to leave town, go on vacation while they fixed up my apartment. And then I met this really nice guy, and he was coming in to inspect my apartment, and we've been inseparable ever since. So I found my little Swiss yodeler. He's not a yodeler. And I started dating this guy, and I thought, okay, well, I can stick around. Yeah. And the rest is history.
But that was never, I mean, were you looking at the time? I mean, I don't think that people go like, let's go to Switzerland and find love. You know, it's not a reality show that we see on TV anymore, right? Like it's not a thing. But were you open to it at least? Were you dating other people at the time too, or no?
Oh, I had a relationship with a dental student before I left, and it wasn't serious, and we were off and on. And I thought, hey, I have this opportunity. I might as well go. And actually, I was scheduled to go on a date with a Swiss guy right before I met my husband. And he ended up canceling on me, he said, let's reschedule, but we ended up canceling, and I ended up going on a date with my now husband. And then, a fast forward after dating a few months, I found out that my husband was dating a gal right when we met before me.
Oh my goodness. Yes. The plot thickens, everyone. Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, that's cute. I think we're going to title this one like Finding Love in Switzerland or something like that. And it'll be part dental, part like personal. That's really fascinating. So did that cause you to stay there? Not cause you, I didn't mean he made you, but did that like help you to stay there a little bit longer than you thought you were going to be there then? Or did you guys come to the States? Like what happened with that part of the journey?
Yeah. Well, I ended up staying longer than I thought I was going to stay because I met him. And after it was time to kind of renew a contract or look for something else, I was naive, and I didn't know that I had a really great visa that not very many people can get. But listeners, I hope you know and value that your education is so important and so valued globally. And I had one of the highest visas that Switzerland could give you as a registered dental hygienist. I have my bachelor's degree, and I wasn't even aware. And there was so many people that were just dying to have the type of B visa that I had. You know, these very educated engineers and architects and chemists and stuff. And I was so fortunate to have this visa, and I didn't even know that I could, after this contract, could have my own opportunity and get my own other working contract. So with that said, I was kind of scared to think about moving jobs or locations.
Mm-hmm.
And after the coldest winter in 100 years, I was ready to come back to California.
I can imagine.
And so, yeah, my husband and I, we had been dating, and I said, listen, I'm in love with you, but I want to go back to California. What do you think? And so he said, well, I'll test it out. I'll give it a year and let's see what happens. I said, all right. Well, it's 19 years later, and
you're still there.
And he's still here.
Well, that's good. Oh my goodness. If you had one bit of advice, let's talk to particular group. Let's pick on. All right, here's the group I want you to very specifically talk to. I've been working for 5 to 10 years now because I feel like they don't get love from anybody. It's always about new grads or retirees or whatever. Okay, I've been out 5 to 10 years. I need to change up my life, whether it's Switzerland or elsewhere. What's your advice for them looking abroad for changing up their life?
Yeah, if you want to live abroad, first I'd recommend narrow down the region where you want to live. Take a little vacation. Check it out for a couple weeks. Please learn a language for the country that you're thinking of moving to. And while you're on your working vacation, really kind of look at the organizations and figure out who's in charge of hygiene, licensing in the specific country that you're in. Be your own advocate and just be prepared for the unexpected. And just like in any job, the faster that you can adapt to a situation, the more comfortable your life will be. Whether that's you got a new prophy paste or whether it's you got a new instrument, the faster that you can adapt to use that, the more comfortable your experience is going to be. Yeah. But, don't let naysayers be out there saying you're too old or you're settled in your ways. If you are genuinely determined to live abroad, work abroad, create your own experience. Don't wait for someone to hand you an experience. Make your own opportunity.
Love it. Claudia, this has been really good. This has been one of the fastest half hours it's ever happened. So if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Of course. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I'm SoCal Smile Artisan. That's my handle. Drop me a DM. Yeah.
All right. Appreciate it very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.